Hello everyone, my name is Zach, and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. I bought my home, the one that I'm sitting in right now, with cash, and I do not regret that decision. Now real quick, let me tell you about a story all about how I bought my house with cash. I promise it'll be quick. I moved from Southern California, which is a very expensive area to live in, especially when it comes to housing, to Eastern Tennessee, which is a lot less expensive, especially when it comes to housing. I had pretty much at that point bought my house over the internet, and then when I actually physically drove out here and moved out here, I was in the process of getting a mortgage, and that was taking forever. I was staying at a hotel, burning money there, and it was kind of frustrating waiting on, the mortgage company to finalize everything. The interest rate was really great. It was like 3.5%, I think it was. So everything was really good. Everything was set to be really good, but it kept delaying and delaying and delaying. And finally I said, why am I even doing this? I have the amount of money. The market is good right now. I won't have any mortgage payment. Yes, there's going to be lost opportunity cost, but if I'm going to try to live this financially independent kind of lifestyle, then it's going to be great not to have that large fixed expense, which is a mortgage. And so I did decide to actually pull out the cash, wire it over, and pay for the house in cash. And I do not regret that decision, because really ultimately the goal when it comes to this whole financial independence thing, it's to have a better life. It's not necessarily to have the highest amount of net worth possible. Sometimes you can make those financial decisions that might not be optimal, that might not lead to the most wealth over time, but are still going to be the best decision for you. And by the way, this reminds me of another video that I created where I actually made a video going through the pros and cons on whether you should have a mortgage or not, whether you should pay off your house early. I'll talk more about that video at the end of this video. But first, let's get on to reason number one on why I think you should pay off your house early if you're looking to achieve financial independence. And reason number one is that your home is not going to be subject to the same market fluctuations. So in a way, if you have the vast majority of your wealth invested in index funds, like broad-based stock market index funds, then your investment assets are going to be subject to regular market volatility, right? It's going to be subject to those fluctuations that the market is naturally going to experience in the short run. Your home is not necessarily going to see that. You're not going to see it fluctuate on a screen, every second of every day like you do with your stocks or with your bonds or with even like your REITs or something like that. You're not going to see that with your primary house. And so you are kind of, in a way, diversifying away from market risk. Of course, you're taking on a different kind of risk, but everything that we do with our money is going to have some kind of risk. So it is very mentally good for you to have some kind of asset that is not going to be subject to regular stock market fluctuations. Reason number two on why you want to have a paid off mortgage for financial independence is that it allows you to like this video. If you're liking this video so far, please make sure you like it. Give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out, and I really would appreciate that. But seriously, let's get on to number two. And the real reason number two is that it reduces your fixed expenses. Your mortgage is going to be considered a fixed expense because it is the same payment every single month, assuming that you have a regular like 30 or 15 year fixed rate mortgage. So your payment amount is going to remain the same. So it is considered a fixed expense. It doesn't vary, month to month or even year to year with how much you owe. Now, the power of having reduced fixed expenses when you're financially independent or when you're retired early is that it allows you to be more flexible with your investment withdrawals. If you have a lower amount of fixed bills that you have to meet as a minimum spend requirement, then that's going to allow you to spend more in the flexible categories like entertainment and going out and all that kind of stuff. And it's also going to allow you to adjust to any kind of market downturns that you need to adjust so that you don't devastate your portfolio during retirement. Having lower fixed expenses also is going to decrease the amount of total assets, like the total net worth that you're going to need to become financially independent. So for example, if we're following the popular 4% rule and we have a mortgage that is worth $1,000 per month, like that is a $1,000 fixed expense for us per month. If we had that eliminated where we no longer have that fixed $1,000 expense, then it's going to significantly decrease the amount of investments that we need in order to become financially independent. So if we take that $1,000, multiply it by 12, that's going to be $12,000 per year. And then we can take that and multiply it by 25 to find our 4% amount of assets that are required to support that $1,000 expense. And in this circumstance, $12,000 times 25 is $300,000. If you have a paid off house that would have cost you $1,000 per month for your mortgage, you now require $300,000 less in invested assets in order to support yourself using the 4% rule. This means that if you needed $1.5 million before in order to support your lifestyle, if you had $1,000 less of spending per month, then you actually only need $1.2 million now. And the idea of having lower fixed expenses is one that heavily resonated with me. And that's a big reason why I paid cash for my house, because now I don't have that fixed mortgage expense. And now my budget can be a lot lower while still having a good quality of life. And now we have reason number 3. So if you have a paid off house, this can allow you to go ahead and invest a little bit more aggressively when it comes to your regular investment portfolio. Because having a paid off house is a very defensive maneuver, it's a very conservative move to make, when it comes to your wealth and when it comes to your investments, you can now afford to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to your primary investments. So this means that you might not need to have a higher allocation to bonds, for example, if you're talking about your ratio between stocks and bonds. Perhaps if you did still have a mortgage, you might need to make up for that fact that you have that large fixed expense by having more bonds in your portfolio when you retire. You might have had, let's say, 70% stocks and 30% bonds. But now, if you instead choose to pay off your mortgage, now probably you can get away with 80% stocks and 20% bonds. You can have a little bit more aggressive of a portfolio. But that's just an example. Really, it can be any ratio that you want it to be, but it can be more aggressive now that you don't have that large fixed expense. And the same holds true when you're talking about, dividing up that total stock market. So for example, you might be able to invest more in small cap funds now that you have lower fixed expenses. You can afford to take on a little bit more volatility with the small cap funds that might possibly produce higher returns in the future than the total overall stock market. Now this leads me to the big question here. I want to know from you in the comments below. What do you think about the whole argument of not having a mortgage versus having a mortgage when it comes to retirement, or when it comes to early retirement or financial independence? What is your take on this? Now with that being said, I do have another good reason for you on why you should pay off your house if you want financial independence. And that is more important than ever in the situation that we're in now. And that is that your house, real estate in general, are an inflation hedge. So they are really good at hedging against inflation. Typically, housing is going to increase in price at least to match inflation. And this is a really big reason why, in general, the entire US housing market has gone up a lot in price because of the general inflation cost, especially when it comes to building new houses, but also just because inflation in general is bringing the price of housing up. And so by you having your house paid off, you are essentially hedging against inflation because you have an asset that is going to at least keep up with inflation, at least historically speaking. So those are some pretty strong and compelling reasons why you should probably pay off your mortgage when you're ready to become financially independent. Now, like I mentioned before, I do have another video where I explain the pros and cons of paying off a mortgage early versus holding on to it. And I do want you to watch that video because it's going to help bring the other side of the argument into this situation of keeping the mortgage. So definitely make sure you check out that video if you haven't watched it already, okay? It's going to pop up on the screen right after I get off the screen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.